exits and close this one. Close this one and let me go share the game's Steam page on my chat. Nice. And okay. Okay. Let me sit in machine. Okay, everyone, please let me know if the sound quality on my end, on both of us ends, is good. Hölgyek, urak, üdvözletem mindenkinek! Kérlek szépen titeket tudassátok velem, hogy jó minden, és hogy kezdhetünk. Please let us know if we can start, and after that we will get into the actual interview here. I'm a bit rusty. I wasn't doing like dev live shows like for 2 months, so but yeah, I'm back. Let us know if you can start. I know it's late here on my end, but hopefully people will join. Szia Mosi! Jó minden? Kezdhetünk? Jobb a hang is egyébként. Is my voice better? Because I know that I had some like voice issues in the past episodes, like my voice wasn't loud enough. Is it better now because I get rid of the malfunctions on my end? Jobb a hang, hölgyek, urak? Is my voice better? By the way, please say something. So.
Oh yeah, hi.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Mindenkit hallani, hölgyek, urak? Mosi, lehet mindenkit hallani? Engem is lehet hallani rendesen? Kérlek szépen, tudassátok velem. Petya. Köszönöm szépen a resubbot. 49-es hónap, köszönöm. Szerinted jó? Jó, oké. They're saying everything is great, so let me know if you can start. Let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do this.
Nice. Okay, thank you. So welcome everyone in my very new episode of Dev Live Show. I'm here today joined with Julia, who is the creator and mastermind behind the game called The Crimson Diamond. And like I'm always saying, I'm very thankful and very honored that you joined us today and you accepted my request for my show. And like always, let's start with a little bit of introduction. So please introduce yourself for us.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, I'm Julia Minamata. I made The Crimson Diamond. I did everything except for the music. It's an old school type of adventure game, but also with some modern design conveniences.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. So as for my always like first question, I'm always interested in people's origin stories, especially when it comes to video games. So what was your very first contact with video games as a player, if you can remember that?
Yeah, I think it might have been a Tandy 1000 machine. My dad would bring home this big 30-pound compact suitcase size portable computer at the time for his work occasionally. And also we had a Commodore VIC-20. So those are the two earliest memories that I have.
I see. And you were at that time, were you like into also making games or just playing, or did you have like this creator mastermind back then as well?
I remember with the Commodore VIC-20, you could get these books where you could try to transcribe code to make the games, and I never could make it to work because I was quite young at the time. But I was always got a little bit interested in making games, although I never really pursued that to any extent until much later.
I see. Okay. And what was the time when you like first transitioned into not just playing games, but to actually like being oriented in making them?
I took a couple of very early high school programming courses. There was something called Turing, which was actually a teaching computer language that was actually created in Ontario, Toronto, Ontario, where I come from. And I tried to make a little, very simple kind of boxar type of game where you kind of move a box around a screen, and it barely worked. So that was my first try with that. And there was also like a flowchart type of story-based program you could try to make a story with, and I used a bit of that as well. I think probably around that time. But those again, those were never finished. They're not even close to being finished. It was only much later, like after college, that I actually got into Adventure Game Studio.
Was it hard, by the way, to get into video game developing?
It was a lot easier than it would have been even 10 years before that
I
because
see.
of I had the YouTube tutorials that I got to watch. Densming actually was the YouTube Adventure Game Studio tutorial maker who posted like 40 plus videos up on YouTube, but I kind of went through all those and taught myself how to use those. And then also there was Adventure Game Studio Forum, Adventure Game Studio, just other developers who I could ask questions to. Yeah, I could not have made this at any other time because we just didn't have the resources available online.
I see. I see. And do you believe in like teaching yourself for all the things that has been needed for making your own game, or do you believe that it is important to have a mentor on your side if you want to learn something important for your work or your job?
For the learning of the programming, I didn't necessarily really have a mentor, but I had
I
a lot
see.
of peers. I had
I
a lot
see.
of, yeah, I said fellow Adventure Game Studio developers who had made, like there's Francisco Gonzalez who made, eight Ben Jordan games before
Yeah.
he started working on commercial games, all that type of a thing where I actually got to ask him questions, specifically Dave Gilbert, of course, of Why Did I Games, another Adventure Game Studio developer. They were always really friendly and super helpful whenever I had a problem or a question. So that was more, it was more like that than I guess in a way they were mentors because they had gone through that
Yeah.
process so many times before on their own. But I always kind of considered us as peers, even though maybe I shouldn't have because I hadn't done anything at that point.
I see. I see. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so and during the developing process of your first game, do you believe like you had to have supportive family members and friends, and do you believe that it's important to have supportive surroundings if you start like making your dream?
I would say so. I
Okay,
think even through my arts, I went to art school. I went to college for illustration, and my parents were very supportive, even though they didn't necessarily understand what I was trying to
I see.
do.
I see.
It was still nice that they were there for me, and my dad built me a light table when I was doing silkscreen printing. So
Okay,
super supportive parents. I was very fortunate, and having friends. One of the best things about going to art school and going to college was meeting people and making friends with people who are kind of on the same journey as you. And I still have some friends that I made in college that are making games as well. I mean, they're not making Adventure Game Studio games, but they're making other games, and we have a lot of the same issues and the same kinds of goals in mind. And
I
I think
see.
that's super valuable at this point. Yeah.
I see. Do you believe like if you did not have those supportive family members and friends, it would be much harder for you on your journey as a game developer?
I think it would have been because I mentioned that I made the Crimson Diamond all kind of on my own. And before that, I was a freelance illustrator, which is also a very solo type of career.
I see.
And socially, it's very hard to connect with people when you were just working from home. I was working from home even before COVID or before any of that stuff.
I see.
And it's super important, yeah, to be connected with other people, not only just for the social aspect, but again, like people are super helpful and they can share information with you. So for that as well, I do think it's been very important for me. Also with Twitch, like I also stream on Twitch once a week, and I started that because of the pandemic, and has been a wonderful experience in terms of social and also getting that support and also just learning stuff from my Twitch chat because they know so many things.
I see. I see. Okay. And so during the development process of your games and game, how have you changed as a person in other territories of your life, and what have you learned? What skills have you picked up into other territories of your life from being a game dev, of course?
I've learned that people are kind of amazingly helpful and kind
Okay.
and patient. That was amazing for me. Internally, I've learned that I'm able to learn new things all the time. I mean, I'm not that old, but sometimes you get to this point where you think that you might not be able to pick things up or learn things with any kind of facility, but just being open to the fact of trying something and, being not good at something at the start of it and gradually acquiring that skill. I think that's something that people should want to try to do all through their lives. And I was very pleasantly surprised that that was the case with me, where I did pick up most of my programming knowledge after college, and that was kind of basically self-taught. That type of thing was super important, but also just my biggest takeaway from developing the game is what I've learned about other people,
I see.
and it's been very like heartening and very encouraging.
Do you feel like before starting making your own game, you didn't believe in those things? Like,
Well, I didn't really have the opportunity to find those things out.
I see,
Um, as a freelance illustrator, I went to school for that, so I kind of was knowledgeable in what I needed to get done and
I see,
everything.
I
But
see, I
with
see, I see.
freelance with game development, there were so many things I didn't know how to do. I mean, not even just the programming, but like marketing and working, being on Twitch and all these other things, like working with on Steam and trying to get the
Marketing
game
is
on
the
Steam.
devil of game developers, by the way.
Yeah, so a lot of those things are things that I had to learn, and I didn't know where to start necessarily. And there are, there's YouTube tutorials, and there's other resources, but the best way is to talk to people who have been through
True,
those
true, true.
exact same
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
And not having had that need before, I never really had to reach out to other people. And reaching out to other people has been incredibly constructive and incredibly like I've made so many friends on the way to making this game, and that's something I certainly wasn't expecting.
I see. Okay, okay. And so when you first like started your very first steps into your journey and into your dream to make your own game, was it very hard or for you that or scary to actually like take the first steps?
It was not scary, but
Okay.
it wasn't scary because I didn't plan on it. And
Okay.
it's kind of slowly happened
I see. I see. I see.
organically. If I knew that the thing I was starting was going to take me more than 6 years to finish, and it would be this whole thing that's 7 chapters long, and it was, and how complicated the story eventually turned out to be, it would have been really intimidating for me. But I think it worked in my favor, this being my first project. I didn't plan it as a game. I planned it just as a way to teach myself different skills. I was teaching myself pixel art and animation, and then slowly teaching myself Adventure Game Studio, and then slowly writing a story about what I was making. And it made it a lot less intimidating because I was still approaching it as a hobby. For a lot of, I like to say that most of the development for the game happened after November 2018. Chapters 2 to 7 were developed after November 2018. But that first chapter, I was fiddling with for years as a hobby, like on and off, or maybe even 5 or 6 years before that, even. I don't like to count that as part of the development process because it was just, yeah, like I said, I'd leave it for months and then come back to it. And then leave it again as I got busy. And as I got less busy with freelance illustration, I had more time to devote to learning how to make the game. But yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people where I tend to underestimate my abilities, and I think that if I had known that it would come to be like what it eventually became upon launch, I might not even have started. It would have been so discouraging.
I see. And by now that you know what you are capable of and how much success your game had, are you planning like to make another game, or can you see it as a career now?
I was planning a second game
Okay.
before the first game even
Oh,
started. I
okay.
mean, before the first game finished, I was starting planning for the next game
Okay.
because I knew there were things that I wanted to do that I've seen in other games that I really enjoyed that I just didn't have room for,
I
or
see.
stuff I was planning for the first game that didn't get around to. And so I started this Google document of all these things that would be neat if she could do this, or this could be the next setting. Yeah, it was
An
actually really
extra
nice.
list, right?
Yes, another list. But yeah, the last month or so of developing the Crimson Diamond, it's very stressful, and you want to be doing anything else, and it's kind of like my little stress relief thing where I could say, oh, I come up with an idea and I could put it in this thing and have something to look forward to after the whole launch and pre-launch, post-launch, everything happened after that. I would just say, okay, there's a future later on. No matter what happens with this game, I have other ideas that I want to do.
I see. I see. So it kept you being motivated. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I see, I see, I see, I see. And so when you first like realized what story you want to implement into your game, like what influenced that very first click of your story?
My first influences were a lot of the kind of books and TV
Okay,
shows and movies that I enjoy. It's just this idea of a certain era of mystery, or we talk about the golden age of detective fiction, which was kind of like the early 1900s, which happens to also be the time that the Crimson Diamond is set. We're talking about Agatha Christie a bit earlier, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, even stuff like G.K. Chesterton's Father Brown. much later, but I still a big influence was Columbo. I love all these different kind of detective things. It's something that I kind of share with my mom, and I think she actually infused that love of mysteries with me as I was growing up. That was the definitely the first influence, and it actually worked out really well because some of these stories are very based on one setting. You think of even like the movie Knives Out, the first one, where
True,
it's kind of all
true,
based
true.
around a house,
Yeah,
and it was a good way to kind of limit the scope of what I was doing. I wasn't going to make a whole village or a town. I was just going to have it all centered in one place and have just time pass and different things happen and characters doing different things at different times, and that definitely helped just to keep it smaller than it could have otherwise been ballooning into something else.
I see, I see. Okay. And by what you have said, so I believe that all of us creators who create something that is important to us, we tend to like implement our feelings and our memories into the creation that we have made. So is it true for yourself as well that there is something you in the game, even if it's a character, a dialogue, or a memory? How could you describe that?
Well, from just an overall perspective of the game, I was my one of my big goals was to create something that would give people the same feeling I used to have when I would
Okay,
play an old Sierra adventure game.
okay,
Being, like young and being in front of the screen and feeling like there's a whole world in front of you, being just a kid and all that kind of like the comfort and the safety of what that is. So that was the overall picture of what I
I
wanted to
see.
create. But the characters, yeah, the characters are very much based on people, I would say. I guess the first one that this brings to mind is Kimi Kishiro, who is Japanese Canadian, and my family's Japanese Canadian, and who would have had a similar kind of trajectory as Kimi is. My dad's side emigrated from Japan to Vancouver, which is what Kimi's family did. Also, Kimi's a bird watcher. My parents loved bird watching. My mom still loves
I
bird
see.
watching. These types of things, just like little character notes and things I wanted to complete, to include. And Nancy Maple is just this pastiche of, Nancy Drew and Miss Marple and also Laura Bow and it's just all these types of characters, these investigative characters who are just, plucky and nosy and well-meaning, a little, that type of character. It was very clear in my mind because I had the benefit of playing the Colonel's Bequest and the Dagger of Amon Ra before I made my game. Those are the two ones that come to mind the most, I would say,
I see.
in terms of the characters that I wanted to create. And as for the setting, I did a lot of like research about what I wanted the setting to be because I knew that the more research I did, the more realistic I could make it. The more story ideas and more puzzle ideas could come from the research that I was doing. So those things were really important to me to have things grounded in my not only my own experiences but just from past like history and things like that.
I see. Okay. Okay. As we were talking about puzzles, you mentioned puzzles. So when designing your puzzles in your game, what difficulty you wanted to aim for? So what was the perfect balance of the difficulty that you wanted to have in your game?
I wanted the game to be very easy,
Okay.
but I knew that because the game is a text parser adventure game, which is not something we've actually mentioned, it is a text parser adventure game. That has a built-in difficulty. So I knew that I didn't want to do anything purposely hard or purposely like moon logic or purposely overly complex or anything like that. I wanted to make the game just like the Colonel's Bequest before it. I wanted the game to be about enjoying the story and the characters and solving the mystery above the puzzle stuff. I mean, there aren't
I see.
there are a couple puzzles that are kind of difficult, but I wanted to make sure that anyone who would play it would be able to hopefully get through it. Just the way with the Colonel's Bequest, you can kind of get to an end, no matter how well or how poorly you actually did in the game. And there's a few ways I designed the game to make it so. One of them is I do have an objective tracking notebook in the game. There is a parser command called review. You can type review and find out what your like top level objective is in the game.
Okay.
There's also a hyperlink in the main menu for an online hint book, which has all everything that you're going to need hopefully to get to the end of the game and then get a pretty decent ending. So knowing that the game was going to be a little bit challenging for people because not only is text parser a bit tricky to use, but also it's not something people are familiar with right now. We don't really have, they're not super common.
Sure.
Those for me were like, okay, well, the puzzles are definitely going to be on the easier side. I'm also really not good at playing adventure games myself. So that's another reason why I wanted to make the game pretty logical. And I feel like if people do complain that the puzzles are too easy, then I probably did my job.
I see. Okay. And so when you first like realized that you making the first steps of making your own game, and you already had like the story, did you also had like the genre that you want to make your game in? Like, did you have like already the point
Yes,
and click
yes, I
genre?
yes, I definitely wanted to do a mystery. I
Okay.
felt like that was a that genre was underused in adventure games
I see.
and at least in the Sierra games. I loved Colonel's Bequest. I loved the Dagger of Amon-Ra. I wanted to see more mystery games. And I don't even know, did LucasArts do a mystery? I mean, maybe Gabriel Knight could be kind of considered a mystery as well. But yeah, that's kind of my favorite type of kind of game to play or story to read, I would say. Just in terms of the challenge that a mystery poses and how that it naturally works with a player because you have things to find out. You have these goals and objectives
True,
and
true,
everything.
true.
And I felt like it was a natural genre to explore, considering that I enjoyed it so much, and that was the type of game that I did enjoy, specifically within the adventure game genre.
Yeah, like you can become more involved with the story if you are playing
Yes.
these adventure games, not just you know reading the books or watching a movie. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, what was really fun about bringing this game in front of people and telling them it was a mystery is immediately people have set up their own expectations about what that means,
Who could be
which
the
is
killer,
great.
right?
Yeah, exactly. They're really engaged with like, oh, who's bad, who's good, who's hiding something, is someone gonna die, who's gonna die, how they're gonna die. And that's kind of like across cultures, it seems
True,
like,
true, true, true.
everyone
Yeah,
has, certain ideas, and whether they're right or not is almost beside the point. What makes it interesting to me is it makes people immediately connect with and engage with the story that's in front of them because of the expectations that they have when you say the word mystery.
true, 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 true. Yeah. Somehow people are very interested in the unknown, right? So they want to
Yeah.
find out what's happening. Yeah, and it's very
Yes.
interesting. Yeah. Okay. And so we talked about before that you also like planning to make another game. So would it be like also a mystery game and a point and click adventure game, or you are aiming for a way different genre, way different type of story, or is it the secret or?
Oh no, no, it's not a secret in terms of what it's going to look like. It's going to look pretty
Okay.
much like the one I just did. People ask me, "Are you going to do like a VGA game or something like that?"
Okay.
And I know I love EGA, like which is that 16 color palette that I worked with for the Crimson Diamond. I love the text parser. It's going to be text parser again. The setting and the characters and all that, that's the secret part. But yeah,
Okay.
I'm not afraid to say that I do want to stick to this exact style of game. I feel like there's something here that is not just a matter of, oh, we're going to improve upon this by getting rid of the text parser, or
I
we're going
see.
to improve upon this by adding colors to the palette. I think that as a style, it totally stands alone. And has its own merits, besides the fact that it was, a result of these technical limitations at the time.
True, true, true. And it's also like if you are loyal to something, it can create, this universe around those stories that you make. Like it's very true for a lot of kind of games that are, loyal to those,
Hmm.
segments. For example, if you picture like Mario games are pretty much similar for over the years, and people love
Yeah.
Mario games, right? And they haven't changed that much. So
Yeah, and I will also say that I feel like I'm just getting the hang of both of those things because I was learning. This was my first game that I made, and I was learning a lot on the way. And I feel like next time, I feel like I could do better pixel art. I could make the text parser even easier to use. I do have these goals of things where, oh, I could even the programming will be so much neater and so much more efficient the next time around. And I would love to see that those things implemented. And yeah, I mean, if I switched it up, then I would have to learn a whole other set of skills, which is not a bad thing necessarily. But I still feel like there's so much that I can learn and refine
true,
with what
true,
I currently have.
true, true, true. Yeah. Have you always had this mindset of yours when you wanted like to achieve for the better, and you always wanted to learn something new?
I have always been someone who wants to perfect what I'm working on.
Okay,
And
okay.
I know that that's impossible. You can't be ever be perfect, but that goal to do that is like you're aiming in the right direction
Yeah,
where
but it's
you
rare
want.
nowadays. Even nowadays, it's very rare in with us human beings. So, is that something that you have developed throughout your life, or have you been taught by your family, or is it something like you always had since a kid?
I th I think it's something I've always had.
I
I
see.
think when I was younger, I was kind of a perfectionist,
Okay,
and
okay.
I've kind of outgrown that somewhat, and I think that's a good thing. But I still love this feeling of refining and polishing something just so that it's this really smooth, perfect experience for people. And I, like I said, I know that's not achievable to be perfect, but that's the goal that I like to
But
aim
that's a very
for.
nice goal. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I know that with games, it's something where you're inviting the player to interact with it,
True,
and in order to give them the best possible chance of enjoying what you've made, you need to think about them. You need to consider what their needs are. You consider what
true, true,
how they
true.
want to play things. I've wanted to, I've tried to include like different options for how people can play the game. Like the movement can be done by the arrow keys or with the mouse. And there's two different ways to use the arrow keys. You know, you have two different ways to do the inventory, the graphical inventory, and there's text part, the text inventory. You can, you know, there's a bunch of different text parser shortcuts you can use or not use. You can use the notebook. If you don't want to use a notebook, you can ignore the notebook. With even the online hint book, you can use the online hint book, or you don't want to use the online hint book. All these things are things I was thinking of. There's not just one type of adventure game player. Some people are super
True,
detail oriented and they want to do everything, and some
true,
people want to
true,
just,
true.
I want to see the story and that's it. And I want to appeal to everyone that is like in either of those camps or everyone in between. I was thinking about that quite a bit when I was making the game.
I see, I see. And so you mentioned before, as uh, being next to this thing that you mentioned now. So by being perfectionist and always questioning yourself, was it like, you know, hard to be in a position when you always like question yourself and sometimes you don't believe in yourself? Is that so? So were there times when you like very much questioning yourself and you started not believing in the process of what you have made so far?
Yes, I
Okay,
think there are different parts. I mean, with the artwork, I was pretty confident with the artwork because
I
that's
see.
what my training is in. But stuff like the programming, I would get stuck for days on something, and then I wouldn't know what to do. And
I see.
that, and even when I was getting help, I was my programming is so basic that even when I would get help, I would have to learn how to implement what was suggested to me, and that felt like, oh, I don't, you know, there's so much I don't know that I've got these huge gaps in knowledge, and I found that really discouraging.
I see.
Additionally, when I was writing the story, I mean, there's a bunch of different kinds of plots and subplots, and that started to get really complicated. And trying to plan where people are going to be and what their motivations are going to be from chapter to chapter got really complicated. And the programming of that was started to get to be a bit much, and it's not even perfect yet. I mean, I've people have pointed out narrative inconsistencies that I still need to fix at this point.
I see.
And some of the puzzles, I don't. A few of the puzzles are a little complicated, and they have multiple solutions, and those ones also were difficult to program for me because again, I'm not a very good programmer, and that was very daunting. I started to have to make flow charts and things like that, and the whole thing is kind of a big mess because, first of all, I was not really planning on making a game, and second of all, I had to teach myself how to make a game at the time, and those things, it made me feel like, you know, I don't know what I'm doing. So what am I doing? And is this even going to work in the end, really? That so there was a lot of doubt in that aspect of it, but so far so good. I mean, when it did launch, it launched pretty well in terms of not having major critical bugs or anything like that. So that's been super fortunate. I have my testers to thank for that. They were incredible. Um, but yeah, I just feel super lucky that I did not have any huge problems upon launch because I was kind of scared about that part.
I see. I see. Okay. And so, by you saying this, so were you, there times, by the way, when you wanted like to give up because you started like questioning yourself?
I would, it's so silly to say this, but honestly, one of the things that maybe the thing that made me closest to giving up was working on the Steam backend and trying to
Okay.
get the game. Which sounds silly because it should be, you know, fairly straightforward. But I've spoken to software engineers who have just as much trouble trying to get the Steam backend working for themselves as I did. But I thought, oh, this is it. I think I felt that one very early on when I was trying to get the demo up,
Okay.
and then and much later on, like around launch time, when I was trying to, you know, figure out the different branches and the depots and the builds and all that architecture stuff, which I can't even visualize in my head yet. And I did get help for that. I'm very grateful that I did from more knowledgeable friends, but it just seemed like a big mess. And then doing press preview keys and beta keys and demo and then full release, those things are the things that I thought, this is it. This is going to be the thing that's going to stop me after all these years of hard work. It's the Steam backend that was just, it. I'm sure it makes sense to somebody, and they actually are very helpful when you do ask Steam support for help. But it gets really scary because when you're going to put something out for people, for customers, you want it to work and you want it
True,
to
true, true,
you know,
true.
be all these things.
It
So I
rises the
felt like
stakes, right?
yes, it raises the stakes incredibly, and that was the part that I think almost made me feel like I should give up. That just trying to get this stuff on storefronts, and I'm still trying to get the game on GOG and things like that. So we'll see how that all goes. But those are the things that tend to make me despair the most because there's these new systems that I have to learn, and I feel like I don't have just the technical background to understand them properly in the first place, and then trying to get yeah, it's just that's the part that kind of stymies me the
People should do
most.
tutorials about that, right? That's an empty space for them to fill in.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. So you mentioned by releasing the game. So by the way, are you planning to release a physical edition or collector's edition of your game?
I would definitely like to.
Okay.
I've been talking to a particular company about that, and yeah, we just started preliminary talks and things like that. But they're kind of a smaller company, and they're very busy, so I haven't really got heard back from them. But I would love to have something up by the holidays. But again, I don't want to make any promises
I see. I see. Understandable. Yeah.
because there's so many parts that have to go into like literally there's so many different parts that go into a big box. And I'm not sure if we're going to be able to pull it together in time, but hopefully, but we will see. Because I know it's something that people really ask for with this type of a game, and I would love to see it too.
True. 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 And are you planning, by the way, to release it on other platforms as well, on consoles especially?
Well, so currently it's on Steam, it's on Itch.io, it's on Fireflower Games, and I'm currently working on getting it on GOG.
Okay.
I don't, yeah, it should be coming out relatively soon, hopefully. But like I said, I don't want to make any announcements because if it doesn't come out on that day, then I don't want anyone to be disappointed. But it should come out like relatively soon enough on GOG, hopefully. But beyond that, it's a tricky one with a text parser because you do need a keyboard. And although I've heard people play it on their Steam Deck and said that it actually works like surprisingly well considering I did not consider the Steam Deck at all when designing the game, and there's certainly no like concessions for Steam Deck or different settings for the Steam Deck. So that was nice to know. But stuff like yeah, stuff like Switch and other consoles, it's really tricky because I wonder how if it's going to be worth the amount of labor involved. Because as I mentioned, it's only me working on this stuff, and then I have a very limited technical knowledge. And I know certification processes for consoles are extremely arduous. And it's a matter of I don't know if it would actually be worth my time considering the fact that it is a text parser game. Like maybe if it was more of a point and click game, it I would consider it more. But at
I
this
see.
point in time, I'm just like there's only so much I can do.
Or you could include a keyboard with the collector's edition, right?
A Bluetooth keyboard,
Yeah,
perfect.
exactly, exactly. There is, by the way, a new game coming out. If I remember correctly, next year, RP7. It's a like slot machine RPG, and you have to move your character from left side to the right side.
Oh my
And they are
god,
giving like real physical like this slot machine
that's
keyboards.
incredible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They
That's
designed
incredible.
a custom keyboard
Oh,
for that. It's
oh, I love
awesome.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So and throughout your journey, you mentioned like you had those times when you like wanted to give up, but what helped you like not to give up and always remember this that okay, I need to follow my heart and I need to go for my dreams and to release my game. It's finished now and I have to get out there for the people that are waiting.
Just taking a break,
Okay.
just stepping back from it for a little bit and just not, letting the frustration just die down a little bit and
Okay.
then reapproaching it. Again, like I said, asking for help. Like I actually got I did screen share and had people coach me through the launch setup, the launch day setup for the builds and everything because at that point, not only does it feel like you're coming to the end of this really long journey, but also you're just kind of a little sleep deprived and that's not a recipe for success with something that you're not too comfortable with. But yeah, I mean that's kind of the only way. And it's interesting because people talk about motivation all the time, and they talk about how do you motivate yourself to do something. And from people that I know that get stuff done, it's a matter of well, you just kind of do it anyway, even if you're not feeling particularly motivated
True. True.
or
True. True.
enthusiastic about something.
True.
Sometimes you just have to, especially with when I was doing freelance illustration and you have a deadline, and even if you don't feel like doing it or you're tired, well, there's the deadline and it's going to go to
True.
print
True.
at 5 p.m. and if you don't have the thing, it's going to be an empty spot on the in the magazine. It's not something that you can really just wait for. You
True.
can't wait for your
True.
motivation. Sometimes you just have to grind away at it, and that's kind of the difference between something as a hobby and something where you actually are trying to be a professional about it, which is, yeah, sometimes you're not feeling it and you still have to do it, unfortunately.
Yeah, but it's hard to like connect with you being perfectionist, right?
Oh yeah,
Because
oh yeah,
like
oh
the
yeah. I
balance,
mean,
right? So
there are so
the
many bugs in
balance.
this game still. Like there, I have a log, and the log is like more than 100 bugs that I have to fix. I mean, they're all basic, kind of minor to medium bugs that most people are not even encountering. But it bothers me that they exist, and I will get around to them eventually. And that's not even all of them logged. I still probably have twice as many to log
I
to
see.
fix eventually. And yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people where I think that is working against me because I still feel like, even though the game launched more than a month ago at this point, I still feel like it's not over yet. And I don't know if it's ever going to feel like it's over. I think maybe after I get the game up on GOG, maybe it'll feel over. Or maybe I'm doing one more, oh, maybe two more, like Steam events. And maybe that'll feel over after that, or maybe when I get all the bugs cleared up, that'll be over. I don't know when it's going to feel like it's over. Like it takes me a while to absorb information and then parse it and then come to an acceptance of a situation, I think. And that's how I'm feeling with this, and it's feeling a little bit weird. I don't even know how to say it besides weird. It feels weird that it doesn't feel over, and I'm kind of feeling wary that it's not, and I'm just wondering if I'm always going to feel this feeling of this incompleteness. I don't know. Time will tell.
It's the mystery, right? You have to
Yes, it's
solve
a
your
mystery.
or mystery.
Yes.
Okay. And do you feel like, by the way, that you mentioned this, do you feel like it was your biggest project? That's why you are worried it's about that much that it's still like not over and not completed.
Yeah, because like that's the whole perfectionist thing again, right?
Okay,
Where I do when people say have even if it's a typo, I'll be like, oh, I really want to fix that because that is it's not as good as it could be, and I knew launching it, I had to make peace with the fact that I knew it wasn't going to be perfect when I
I see,
launched it,
I
but
see.
it was going to be good enough. Yeah, it can be difficult when you have that type of personality, I think, to actually let go of something that way and just let it get out there. Otherwise, it's just never going to get done. I mean, it already took long enough, that um, I knew at a certain point
You just
that it
added
was
an
going to.
extra DLC for your life, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, I think with the type of personality that I have, it just makes it difficult to just like let go of something
I
and put
see,
it out
I
there.
see, I
Yeah.
see, I see. Do you think like, in my opinion, it might be when you let it go, like when you start the next project, right? It might be the
Maybe. Well, here's the thing. Like, maybe you're right. Maybe that's exactly the solution, right?
yeah.
Maybe I have to start on something new to
Yeah, like
feel
you
like I
said,
can
you
move
have to
on.
go into
Yeah,
the projects, right? So
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
that could be
yeah.
the solution.
That could be the solution. Like, I've already done like a bit of like a vacation. I did like a 5 night vacation type of thing to
I
kind of
see.
try to disconnect myself from it a bit and then feel like, oh, it's over now, right? Just trying to put like time and space between launch and now. But I came back to it. I'm like, okay, well, I came back to more than 100 bugs that I still need to fix. But maybe at some point, and I've heard from developers that say that, like Francisco of Lamplight City says he still has bugs he needs to fix in that game, and that game's like 7 or 8 years old by now. I don't think that ever ends, but you have to feel like it is internally, you've internally moved on to something else, and maybe that's what I literally need to do is just actually just move on to something else.
True. And I feel like, I'm always saying this, that players especially are now very judgy, especially in this era of cancel culture that we live in video game industry as well. That people are very like judgy if it comes to criticizing games on a player side. In my opinion, like personally, I never had like problems with bugs because I don't
Hmm.
feel like. I mean, so I never felt like a buggy game is a bad game.
Mm.
And I always say this, that people can like be very harsh with their opinions, and I feel like those people who are very harsh with their opinions are mostly those who are not happy with their real life, and they are willing to put their you know inner true bad self to the table when they are criticizing these games. And I feel like that's the point when like they put weight on the shoulders of the developers,
Mm.
because like they are reviewing this game on Steam or wherever they are doing those reviews, even if they are journalists or just players. And developers can feel very ashamed and bad, and I think
Mm.
that's a very big thing in this video game industry now, that people are like these very harsh weirdos, who are trying to shame developers. And so do you feel like for you is it very important to be part of these like people and to give them the best you can, or do you feel like sometimes you need like to focus on your thoughts and for your own like ideas and not to give away too much for
Mm.
them?
Well, I think one of the things that helps me when I think about shipping something that has bugs in it is that back in the day, things shipped with bugs all the time. Even when we had, a team of expert employees at Sierra that, like it's infamous that Quest for Glory 4 had this critical bug that people had
There
to
was
get
no
like a
online patches as well, so they
and
could
there's
not
no
fix
online
it. Yeah,
patches. Yes,
for sure.
exactly. So you had to like get a disc, and you had to get the disc
True,
mailed to
true,
you.
true, true.
Um, so that's not even back in the day when this was all happening, bugs existed and they were so much more difficult to patch.
True.
When I think about that, then I feel like I'm less hard on myself
I
when I
see.
think about that because I know that, you know, I. I have certain expectations of myself, certainly, but I try to be reasonable with myself and say, this is my first game that I ever made. It's a miracle that it works as well as it does. And as for the bugs, I think people, for the most part, have been pretty positive about the game. The game's been reviewing really well, which I'm really grateful for. Part of my art college education was learning how to take feedback.
I
So
see.
taking constructive criticism or like reading criticism of your work and being able to kind of tease out like what is worth your time and what maybe you can kind of
Can you
discard.
always realize, by the way, what is worth your time or what is not?
It can be tough sometimes, especially. I mean,
Okay.
we all have emotions, right? We all have ego, and that, of
True, true,
course,
true.
that will always play into it. You'll read something that's negative, and of course, the first response to your gut response will be like, "Ugh, I feel bad about this," Um, but then you take a second look at it, and then I've seen some criticisms that I find to be quite valid, and that's totally fine, and totally acceptable. Um, yeah, I think I try not to take it personally, and I think I'm pretty good at not taking it personally. Although I always say that it's kind of hard not to in a way because this game, except for the music, I did every aspect of it. So in a way, that's extremely personal to me. But at the same time, I know it isn't me per se. It is just a product that I've created. But yeah, it can be tough to read negative things. But if I feel like it's coming from a constructive place, then yeah, I will take it on board. And if it's something that I can change within my limited technical knowledge, and limited time, I will try my best to do that. But if it's something where I feel like it's kind of like this groundless criticism, then yeah, I just tend to discard it.
I see. I see. You have to believe in yourself more, by the way, because you're saying too much that you have this limited knowledge for programming and other stuff. I need you to do your homework and believe in yourself more.
I
Okay.
well, some of my testers are, like I said, software engineers or software developers, and they tell me, no, no, this is how all software programmers, this is how all programmers feel, and everything's a big mess. So don't worry too much about it.
True.
And that helped me a bit because, yeah, I do tend to feel like I have these preconceived notions about what programmers are like or what software developers are like. But they
But
said
you are
that, yeah,
willing
you,
to learn, so that's important, right? So you're
yes,
not
yeah, I'm
just a
very,
person who gives up and.
no, no, yeah, it's an interesting thing because thinking about I know quite a few indie game developers who started as artists first and then taught themselves programming. Although I do think it's more common for indie game developers to be programmers who then hire art or like self-teach themselves how to do
I see.
art. And I will say I think there's two different approaches that I see with these people. So the people who are like me, who were artists first and then moved into programming, we are used to things being hard and grinding away at something because acquiring the skill of art is basically a grind. Like there's no shortcuts to learning how to draw and how to paint. You have to put hours and hours and hours into this. But if you're a programmer first, like there's always a shortcut, and if you can find a shortcut, then you can accomplish something so much faster than you would otherwise. And I think it's funny to see these two different perspectives because yeah, sometimes I'll think, okay, there's probably a programming solution to what I'm trying to do that would save me so much time, but I would take just as much time trying to figure out that programming solution. So I'm just going to do it the hard way because learning art is just a hard way every single time. And I'm just more open to pursuing the hard way to do something, whether instead of trying to be clever about it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you picture by that, you saying like you have to grind in the hard way and learn everything, it will give you more knowledge, right? So if you take the easy way in programming, it can cause the fact that you might not understand pretty well what you're doing, right? So in my opinion, at least.
Well, yeah, possibly, but I think that if there's always a logic to programming
True,
where
true, true,
okay, well,
true,
there's a shortcut, and then okay, so it works, and then now I can now use this shortcut. And I've done that a few times with some of the things in the game where
true.
I just have a block of code that I know does a thing, and I don't really know how it works, but it kind of works okay. And there's a few of those in there, but with artwork, yeah, with artwork, there's no shortcut
True.
to do it. So I just think it's fascinating to see those two fundamentally different approaches in the game developers that I know.
I see. Okay. So what was, your most favorite moments throughout the development journey that you had now, throughout the years?
Hmm. My favorite moments.
Or favorite moments, if you want to
Yeah.
say more.
Yeah, there's a few things that spring to mind. One of them was I mentioned that I consider the development to happen mostly from November 2018 onward,
Okay.
because November 2018 was when I first publicly showed the demo. And that was really significant to me because until that point, I had never shown it to anybody, except for friends. And getting to see the reaction of people who, most of them remembered fondly that type of game, like that type of EGA text parser game. They hadn't seen it in decades, and their faces lit up when they saw it, and that was pretty significant to me. Because when I started making it, I wasn't thinking about other people when I started making it. I was just making something for me, and it was like an exercise and a little hobby project for me. That was very significant. The first time I publicly showed the game, and also getting to see like a father and daughter come to the event and sit down in front of the computer and play through a bit of the demo, and see them interacting with it with the way that I remember people interacting with these types of games, where they'd do voices, and he'd help her type on the keyboard, and they'd read out the dialogue and everything. And yeah, that was significant because I thought, hey, that's when I actually decided I'm going to try to finish this thing. This is something that I'm going to focus more of my time and energy on. Seeing that reaction, so that was very significant for me. I think that was big. That was a big one. And in terms of development, I would say that that's a hard one. I think there are times in the game when it does feel like it's a chaotic design,
I see.
but when you can make connections to, yeah, certain characters' motivations or why certain things are going to happen in the game, and they start to make logical sense in a way that I've crafted this very, this story that's got all these moving parts, and when you can make it so that the motivations of the characters work within that structure you've already created, it feels like you're finding something that was there all along and not inventing something. So that is nice. It's that feeling of this creation is one of the most satisfying things that I can think of. And just overall, I think having a way that I can express myself, not just through art, but through the writing and the game design and every aspect, of course, except for the music. Dan Polakar was incredible working on the music for this. But having all those different ways of expressing myself with the game and then seeing people respond to it, like, yeah, that was also very significant when I started to share the game out more publicly. That was really fantastic.
I see. I see. And do you find that you found yourself by making your own game and releasing it? Do you feel like you got back to your inner child that you always wanted to make games and create something that is you?
That yes, I shortly, yes, definitely. And it's funny because I was so Dan is a musician, and he tours with Sean Paul. And so whenever Sean Paul is in town or in a place that I can easily fly to, I go to the shows. I meet up with Dan backstage. And we get to hang out. We don't get very many opportunities to hang out, actually. Only seems to be, for the most part, backstage before Sean Paul shows. And we're sitting, and we're talking about this, and he's saying, like, we are both doing what we said we wanted to do as kids. And it's true. I always knew I wanted to do something creative, and I thought it was going to be just the art part. But as it happens, game development, with all these different aspects of creativity, really suits me more than just doing the illustration part did.
I see.
And it has certainly been an incredible growth experience. from I would say like the last like 6 years of development and all the things that I've gotten to do, and I've traveled all over the place showing the game, and like I said, I've met so many different people, I've had all these different experiences. And even before the game launched, I would tell my Twitch viewers, they would ask me, are you nervous about the game? Do you think it's going to be a success? And I've always said to them, it's been a success already for me. Like no matter how many units it sells or how few it sells, I've just gone on this whole journey.
Yeah.
So I was not, of course, you want the game to do well, and you want the game to launch well. And it did, I think, as well as it could have done for an adventure game. I was very happy already with, even before it was finished, just what I've gotten to do
I
from
see.
just opening myself up to being something else besides doing the illustration. Yeah.
I see. I see. Thank you for that, by the way. So, do you think like you would regret by knowing all this journey that you had, and you are happy with your journey? Would you regret not, taking the first step in order to have this journey?
It is, like I said, I was not scared or intimidated because I
Okay.
kind of tricked myself into slowly developing the game. But yeah, it can be hard to start new things or to try something. And I've always been super encouraging on my streams to people that even if, so much has been said about finishing things, and it's true. I think finishing things is a significant accomplishment, but then I think too many people can be too scared to start something.
True.
And they will make up all these reasons of why it's not a good time to do it, or it's not, I'm not a good artist, I'm not a good writer, I'm not a good programmer. But then as I've met with all these other game developers, and a lot of them, like we talk about Francisco, he taught himself how to do art from nothing, I mean, basically, like, no artistic training whatsoever. And you look at like Rosewater, and Rosewater looks gorgeous.
True.
That can only happen through persistent effort and kind of learning as you go. And these are the kind of people that I find the most interesting people, and it's been such a privilege to meet and get to know them, is the ones who go for it, who dive in and say, I'm going to try this thing. I'm not going to let anything stop me. And if I find like an obstacle, I'm surrounded by people who are willing to give me feedback and to help me, give me support. Even if they can't help me, that support and that encouragement is also super valuable. Yeah, I would encourage anyone who does want to try to start something is don't be worried. Listen to them about finishing stuff, but also don't be too concerned about it, because just try things and see what you like and see what you don't like. And just the act of creating, even if you don't finish something, is just rewarding. I think it's really good for the
True.
soul.
True. 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 Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So I have some more questions, but are you down to answer some questions from my chat as
Hmm.
well?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. Let us know if you guys, ladies and gentlemen, has any questions. Hölgyek, urak, hogyha bármi kérdés van, nyugodtan kérdezzetek. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, Anna. Thank you.
Hi, Anna. Good to see you.
Let us know. I know it's late on people
Mm.
from Euro, but don't be lurkers. Let us know, let us know. Hölgyek, urak, ne lurkeljetek, most itt az idő, kérdezzetek nyugodtan. Hey, ho mindenkinek. By the way, a question for me before anyone
Yes.
would write a question. So, how has your perspective as a player changed as from being a game developer? I forgot to ask that question.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched upon this before, where if you make things, I think you have a lot more empathy for people who
Okay,
make things,
okay, okay.
Yeah, I mean, because we just know how hard it is to make
True,
stuff
true,
and to
true, true,
finish something.
true.
And so when I see stuff like I play on my Twitch streams, I've been doing EGA adventure games, old EGA adventure games.
I see.
And some of them are very challenging to finish, and some of them don't make a lot of sense, and some of the art is a little bit like you don't really know what you're looking at type of a thing. But I am so happy to play them because this person did this thing, and it would have been maybe 30 years ago this person made a thing, and I'm playing it today. I think that's incredible.
Sure.
And especially the people who kind of did it kind of all on their own, and self-taught themselves how to do it, and they didn't let anything stand in their way, and there's still an experience to be had there. I just love that part of it. And so when I play games nowadays, it's just amazing when something gets finished.
Sure.
That's an accomplishment on its own. And so, yeah, I mean, like you said, like when there's a bug in the game, I don't have too much negativity for the developer for that because I know how that goes.
True. True. True.
And so I find that, yeah, and I think that that's another reason I encourage people to create stuff, anything really, because when you start doing that, you do understand, and you start to respect and empathize with other
True.
creators, and I
Exactly.
think
Yeah.
that's only a positive thing.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I always say this, that people who judge with their very harsh opinion any developers or any games, they should start to make their own games, and they will understand how hard it is. And also, like, people forget that it's actual human beings who are making these games. It's not just a
Yes.
click. They have problems, they have real issues
Yes.
in their life, not just making a
Yes.
game. So
Yes.
people do not
Yes.
understand that at the end of the day. They think like it's just a game comes out and that's all.
Yes.
Like, it's
Yes.
not. Like, it's
Exactly.
humans who are making these games, just like
Exactly.
you
And
and
I
me and everyone else.
Yeah, and I had that perspective back when I was a freelance illustrator because sometimes you'd see an illustration from an artist you know is terrific and the art is not that great. And there's two questions you need to ask yourself as well. How much time did they get to make this illustration? And what was the budget on this illustration type of a thing, right? Because you can have the greatest artist in the world, but if you're going to give them a horrible, conditions of, okay, well, we need this in 3 hours and we're going to
True,
give you,
true,
$200 for, like, there's only so much they can do. There are these limitations that are beyond just the creation of
true,
something, you
true.
know? So that's another thing is that, sometimes there are, as you said, there are aspects in it that, even beyond personal life, but just like physical things like, oh, they had 2 weeks to make this, whatever. It's a game jam game, or it happened on a week over a weekend. So of course it's going to be rough around the
True,
edges, or
true,
there
true,
are all these other issues to do with games that people don't consider.
true,
And that was something that I think that a greater awareness of that it definitely is going to be helpful for just being nicer to developers when stuff like that happens.
true, true, true. Do you think like these people who are too harsh with their judgments on developers and on games can change for the better in the future?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, no question about it. I think if they're open-minded about it, or if they, yeah, if they be creative themselves, or you don't even have to be that creative yourself to be more empathetic about it.
True.
Is there's so many, podcasts where you can talk, even stuff like this where you're talking to game developers. Even stuff like this is going to help you develop empathy and understanding of, yeah, we're human beings, we have
Yeah.
stuff going on in our lives, it's not all super smooth, we have limitations and
Exactly.
issues
Exactly.
and everything. And yeah, so some stuff like this, I mean, if you're not gonna, if you're not a creative person, that's totally okay, but you could like listen to stuff like this and engage in stuff like this and come to that understanding and appreciation.
True.
Yeah.
True. True. Yeah. Okay, Luis is asking, "Hi Julie. As a
Mm.
dev myself, I
Yeah.
would want you to talk a little bit about how to raise funds for a game. I thought you did Kickstarter, but you didn't."
No, I did not do Kickstarter. It is something I would consider for the future. But so what for me it was is I was a freelance illustrator for 10 years before I started in game development. And I was saving and saving and saving because as a freelance illustrator, you never know when your next job's going to come. And every time I finished a contract in illustration, I thought it was going to be my last one. You just never know. I've always been really, really frugal and really good at saving, but also during the development. So during that 6 years of development time where I was working on the Crimson Diamond and thinking that I would like to finish it, only the last couple years I'd say were really like more considered full time. I worked on contract jobs on other games. I did sprite work for Space Warlord Organ Training Simulator. I did sprite work for Witch Strandings, and I also did art direction and artwork for Recommendation Doc, and those were all with Zalavier Nelson Jr. with Strange Scaffold. So those were like three projects that I was working on contract. And I also did some other types of consultation during that time. Additionally, I do have a Patreon, and I also, just have make a little bit of money month to month on Twitch, and I also have a fourth wall, like a merch store and things like that. So all that combined, like savings plus contract work on Patreon, Twitch, all these things together have kind of made it so that I'm able to sustain myself during this time of development. But now I've come to this point. That's another thing where I finished the game. and now I have to figure out what my life is going to look like. Um, can I go into the next game and work on that, dedicate myself full time to it? Am I going to need to do other contracts part time and then work on the game part time? That's still early days. It's too early for me to know that either. And I think as someone who is kind of a perfectionist who likes to know, where things are in my life, not having that grounding is a little bit, unsettling for me because I do like to know where I'm going to be like in a year's time, and I really don't know.
I see. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question and the answer as well. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let us know if there is any or there are any more questions. Thank you, by the way, Luis, for the
Mm-hmm.
question. Let us know. Hölgyek, urak, bármilyen kérdés? If you would happen to mention your favorite games of all time, which ones would be, by the way?
Yeah, I always say my favorite adventure game, funnily enough, is not a Sierra adventure game. It's actually The
Okay.
Secret of Monkey Island, the
Okay.
EGA version. I think it's the perfect combination of artwork and music and game design and storytelling and humor. That one is, yeah, that's my absolute favorite one.
Okay.
I also really love Return of the Obra Dinn. Lucas Pope is kind of like a game dev hero for me because he's a solo game developer who also did the music, and I didn't do the music for mine. But the fact that he's got this amazing, like, I always am so envious when people have this great amount of technical knowledge, and he was able to create this whole engine and this way of rendering like 1-bit 3D black and white pixel graphics in a way that looks good and doesn't make you like feel nauseous or anything. It's kind of a miracle. I love that game as well. Um, Let's see what else of older games that I've played. This is one of those questions where you feel like, oh yes, of course, the Quest for Glory series from Sierra. That one I love, especially the first two being EGA text parser games.
I see.
Um, yeah, because my second favorite genre is role playing games,
Okay.
computer role playing games,
Okay.
and having there be a touch of role playing in Quest for Glory games, and also multiple solutions to problems. I really, I thought those are my favorite Sierra games. I would say.
I see.
I
I see.
also I also love Day of the Tentacle. Day of the Tentacle has incredible puzzles, and again, amazing like voice acting, music, production value, art, everything.
True. True.
Um,
True.
that's
Yeah.
another one, super one of my favorites. Yeah.
Okay. And so you mentioned like you are very comfortable with the feeling that you would like to pick up another or more skills
Hmm.
throughout your journey or next journey for making another game. So what skills would you like to pick up?
Better programming
Okay.
skills,
Okay.
and better knowledge of Adventure Game Studio just as an engine. There's
Okay.
so much of it that I don't know, and I've now become friends with some Adventure Game Studio developers who have already helped me with some scripting and stuff like that. That I would love to implement more of that. That's more stuff I would like to know. As well, just stuff like Twitch. I don't know how involved you are with getting all the like these Twitch emojis and like all the different like stuff you can get on Twitch. I don't know how to do any of that stuff, and I've been streaming for 4 years. I should probably get better at that. People like scene transitions. People have those Elgato stream decks and things like that where you can press a button and all kinds of stuff happen. I would love to have that. I would love to learn more about how to do that. Those are probably my two big ones, I think. I want to become a better streamer because I actually found that I really enjoy streaming, which kind of surprised me, but that's another thing where I talk about going on this journey and learning so much. I didn't know that about myself, and in fact that I do enjoy the streaming. But also mainly is the programming because I feel like if I had a better handle on it, I could do things faster and I could also do like a greater variety of things. That's my number one goal, I would say, in terms of what I want to learn. I also want to play with other like graphics modes. Like
Okay.
my game looks like Sierra SCI 0 engine games, but they had AGI games where they had like it was blockier and stuff, like Gold Rush and the early King's Quest and Space Quest games. I would love to make a little game in that style as well. So that's another kind of a learning thing I want to do. But yeah, those are the main kind of goals I have in this intervening time. Like I don't want to necessarily dive directly into the sequel next. I want to make like a little game first, possibly like that I can start as a template for building something larger. So I want to take all the programming lessons I've learned and apply them to something small that I can then like build out to some like a larger sequel in the end.
I see. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, let us know if there is any more question, by the way. Hölgyek, urak, bármi kérdés? By the way, as for Twitch, it's very rare that solo developers are streaming their journey throughout the game development. So it's I think it's a very good thing that you are doing as well, and
It's
also a very
tricky.
rare thing. So people can connect to you by that.
Yeah, I think it's really helped. It's tricky because it is an adventure game, and I wanted to keep everything very secret. Besides what was in the first chapter, I didn't want to spoil anything. But luckily, or I don't know if it's luckily, but I had a long introductory sequence for the game that had a lot of like very placeholder graphics that I had put out, and I needed to upgrade those graphics to make them like game quality. And the basically all 4 years was me just upgrading the introductory sequence graphics. So that meant no spoilers. But I will say, yeah, from a launch perspective, streaming on Twitch has like made me a bunch of like online Twitch friends and like retro Twitch streamers are like my favorite people because we all grew up with the same stuff. We have a lot in common that way. They're playing the old stuff that sometimes I don't have time to play the old stuff anymore. So it's fun to just watch other people play them while I'm working and things like that. Yeah, it's been really, really, really cool to just get connected with a bunch of Twitch streamers, and then when the game launched, a lot of them played the game, which is incredible because I'd
True.
already enjoyed watching them play the game, watching them play other games, then watching them play my game was incredible. I absolutely like total pleasure to see that.
True. And it also helps like to grow your community who are will be the ones who will play your game, right? I was talking to another
Yes.
developer at my dev live show, and he also told me that it's a very good thing to have your community before you're building your game, because like you can have those people who will help you grow as well.
Yeah, I think Twitch has been the best for that for me.
True.
Yeah, on Twitter, I've got like a Twitter where I've got good number of followers and stuff,
Yeah,
but I
but
would
it's
say
not that
that
personal, right? So it's like
no. It's not nearly as personal. Twitch has
true.
been like it's been such a surprise to me that it's something that not only do I enjoy doing, but it's also been, socially very valuable for me, and then
True.
also just as a way to encourage people to play the game. Yeah, it's and even just for entertainment for me to just watch while I'm working. All these amazing streamers play all these incredibly obscure games sometimes that I'd never heard of. Yeah, it's been for so many reasons. Probably the best thing that I kind of discovered during development of the game. I would have to say it's been Twitch.
Okay. So we
Yeah.
have to write a message to CEO of Twitch, right, to thank him.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, CEO of Twitch, for making Twitch, and like the discoverability on it is incredible, and just all yeah, like I love the little emotes that people can have of Nancy Maple waving and things like that. I
Let me
love
know,
all
by
that
the way, and
stuff.
we can help you with my community by Twitch and the emotes and everything. So yeah,
Oh, sure, no, that would be
yeah,
awesome for sure.
yeah, nice.
Um, yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful platform
True,
that
true, true,
I've
true.
just enjoyed so much.
People hate on it, but it's still like the best streaming platform in my opinion. Like it has always these cool updates. So yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, let us know. Let us know if there is any more question. I know it's late, like I'm always saying on mine, especially
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
today, but let me know. Hölgyek, urak, bármi kérdés? Bármi kérdés? Bármi kérdés, hölgyek, urak? Bármi más kérdés? By the way, we talked about like the most or the best and most happy moments throughout your journey as a game developer. But what were the worst ones like, or those that you might not want to remember anymore? Like you want to
Well,
let it go?
we talked about the Steam backend, so that
Okay.
was something. But I think in terms of like bad moments, it's more like just frustrations,
Okay.
like kind of working on a version of the game and then loading up the previous day's version of the game, working on that. So not remembering what progress you had made your previous version iteration. That's frustrating. But yeah, I'm trying to think of what was just very, that is a good question. I've been very fortunate that it's been mostly positive, and I'm racking my brain for like negative things that have happened to the game. Um, hmm. Huh. It's mostly, I think the most negative thing is just that, like I mentioned, that's just a grind, especially leading up to um, launch, where it just felt like I was so scared that something would go wrong because there's so many like decisions you need to make and things you need to make sure the boxes are checked on everything that I was very, very scared that it wouldn't launch properly. Like something would happen in the Steam backend and then no one would be able to buy it and then you'd lose all your launch momentum. I was very paranoid about that. So those were not good times. I would say those weren't good times. Um, but yeah, just super relieved that it worked out in the end. But yeah, I think that was probably the most anxiety inducing part of the whole development was just the couple weeks before launch, I would say. We're just because you care so much about something, you spend all
True,
this
true,
time and effort
true,
on
true,
something
true.
that you just think if anything could go wrong, this is the exact time something would go wrong. There's so
You
many
don't want to
ways.
mess up with one click, right?
Exactly, and there's so many ways it could have, been messed up by just forgetting some
True,
checkbox or
true,
doing
true,
not doing something properly, and then you just don't want to let yourself down.
true, true. But it's weird, like Steam doesn't have a tutorial mode that I was joking about earlier, right? So
They have documentation, but sometimes the documentation's old, and then they'll be like, "Okay, click on this and that," and I'm like, "That doesn't exist anymore. That's not even in your thing anymore." So that's not that great. But like I said, it's Steam. The Steam support is generally pretty good in terms
okay,
of like helping when you feel
I'm
like
not familiar with it. That's why I was asking it.
yeah,
So
yeah. So they are pretty good with it, but just yeah, the actual how to do stuff, it just sometimes feels not super user friendly. But like I said, that's another benefit of knowing a lot of game developers is that you can help each other with these things
true,
and say, "I don't
true.
know what's going on," and help me, and people are happy to help, and I'm happy to help. I don't know if I'd remember at this point how to help with that, but yeah, I mean that type of thing where especially more like with AGS than anything else, like the actual engine, just getting that help where I would have been stuck forever. It's one of those things where you'd want to pay it forward.
I see. I see. Okay, and so seeing your game and also other adventure games that are coming along or will be released next year or later uh, in the future. So, how do you feel about? Is it true like the golden era of adventure games is coming back? Do you believe in that? Because I do. Like that's why I'm asking it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, we often hear that adventure games died at some point,
Yeah.
and I don't, it's one of those things where there was definitely a point where I stopped really playing adventure games or playing any games for that matter. But I don't know if that coincides with the death of adventure games. Maybe a lot of people. I've talked to people who had the same experience as me in this regard, but I don't know if it. I think games are still being made, and probably still quite good games were being
True.
made. It's just a matter of like timing for me, and also the setup of my computer. And what I mean by that is, after King's Quest 4, we and after King's Quest 7, I mean, after Quest of Glory 4, after King's Quest 7, Gabriel Knight after Gabriel Knight 2, a lot of adventure games kind of transitioned into like 3D graphics or like more FMV or 3D graphics. And those were very like demanding on your on computers. And I didn't have a top of the line computer, and also I really loved the old EGA art, like the pixel art. It's like not only EGA but VGA pixel art. And when companies started moving away from that and into 3D, I didn't find it as appealing.
I see.
Just aesthetically, I didn't find it as appealing, and yeah, technically, like the games would be very laggy on my computer. They'd be unplayably slow and choppy. There was no more of an appeal for me to play them, and and also I think at that time I was probably I don't know how old I would have been, but I would have been like really busy with school and really focusing on that and not spending so much time playing games. I think those two things coincided, and then I stopped playing games for like a really long time. And I didn't come back to it until probably the early 2000s when, YouTube started becoming a thing and Let's Plays started to become a thing. Like people would play stuff on YouTube and they would like post the videos. And I discovered Francisco's Ben Jordan games. I watched her crabbiness play the Ben Jordan games, and the Yahtzee Kurosawa Shizuo mythos she also played. And I discovered, oh, there's people making adventure games of the kind that I remember enjoying. It's no longer like these 3D models kind of like bashing into each other. It's like we're back to pixel art. We're back to more, what I would consider traditional adventure games. And they're being made by like one person, and also they're being made in an engine called Adventure Game Studio. And isn't this fascinating to me? It was fascinating to me. And when I started to see that, that's when I started to get interested in trying to do pixel art and learning a bit of Adventure Game Studio myself. So I feel like technically what happened, like technologically what happened was I lost interest in a certain format of adventure game, but when they brought back they being a very, amorphous they, which is just independent adventure game developers, when they brought back this and then I could watch people play them on YouTube, it became this whole other thing where I rediscovered it. And that's not to say in the interim period there was nothing happening. And not to say that there weren't some amazing adventure games
True,
being
true.
developed, because there probably were, but I was just not aware of them because
I
I
see.
had stopped paying
I
attention,
see.
And I feel like I know a lot of people that are in the same boat as me, where they did stop paying attention around the 3D era and they kind of came back to it once the indies came on the scene. But that was definitely my trajectory of like adventure games and coming back to them after like a bit of an absence.
I see. I see. And what do you think could be the case behind that? A lot of like bigger companies forgets to be like loyal to, to these old school genres or old school like graphical settings and themes that you
Yeah, I
mentioned.
think I think part of it is because as computers became more advanced,
Okay.
they were more capable of doing more things.
Okay.
And like it used to be, back in the like 30 years ago, it used to be that the AAA flagship releases would be adventure games. But as computers got more able to like render 3D graphics and render video and everything, it kind of branched out to be more, like I don't even know, like whatever the consoles are doing, like Nathan Drake type of adventure, like full-fledged like action adventure games that have narratives and everything, where they were trying to push the technical limitations of the machine. Like you think of something like Myst, or you think of other games like that, where um, it's almost like games were a way to sell computers because
It's true.
they were
It's true. It's true. Like you mentioned, Uncharted series, they are system sellers, so it's true. Yeah.
so in that way I can see why like the big companies moved away from like just the simpler adventure games, because not only was the machines were capable of doing more, but they would be driving this hardware sales and things
True.
like that.
True.
And so I
True.
feel
True.
like that was part of the reason why. And also, yeah, I mean nowadays the big AAA games, they're costing millions and millions and millions of dollars to make, and hundreds of people over like 4, 5, 6 years, And I think adventure games, I feel like, are thriving with that smaller team, like with a solo developer or a smaller team. That because we have these tools available where we can make stuff that was like the stuff that was made, 30 years ago
True.
on our own now, and the margin can be so much smaller in terms of like how much you need to make to actually scrape out a living for yourself. Like I don't need to sell 500 million copies of my game to break even.
True.
Um, I think it's actually in a pretty decent spot right now in terms of having adventure games be more in the realm of indie game developers. We've seen some larger scale releases, like there's Return to Monkey Island and
True.
Thimbleweed Park and things like that. But it is really difficult at that scale when you are hiring lots of people and contracting out, with adventure games. I think to sell enough units to justify like a double or triple A expense.
True. 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 And in my opinion, it's like getting more and more harder in order to have a bigger team and to make a very good game, because like I feel like there is a lot of like misunderstandings between people, especially if it's like more than 100 people working in one team. Like
Yes. Then you feel like your whole life is, meetings and meetings and
true,
meetings.
exactly,
We're
exactly.
trying to
Like the art
communicate with the
is
people.
fading away, and
Yeah.
people won't understand each other. And I feel like indie has much bigger, scenario in video game
Hmm.
industry because of the fact that, like you said, like one person can make a bigger game now, or 10
Yeah.
people made studio can even make a way bigger game than these AAA companies, because they understand how to connect with each other as a team, and that's I think that's very important in like
Yeah.
making
With a small
anything, like not just games.
Yeah, like small team and solo developer, there is much, you'd hope at that scale you do have more of a say creatively in what
True,
you're
true,
making.
exactly, and the more
Um,
freedom, right? So you
yes,
don't
there's
have
more
to
freedom, which
sacrifice the freedom.
exactly. So you're not when you're not trying to appeal to, millions and millions of people, the
Exactly,
broadest possible
exactly,
audience.
but you
There's
still
there's an op.
can, right? So
Oh
you
yeah, yeah,
still
yeah,
can
you can.
succeed. So
Yeah. Yeah, but there's an opportunity when you're not having to appeal to the broadest possible audience to get to do something very specific
True,
and
true, true.
unique to yourself, that and it becomes more of a like a means of like personal creative expression. And in that way, I think you can connect with the people that you connect with, you're going to connect with really strongly.
True.
And I think that that might be the secret to hopefully continued indie adventure game success is you reach the people that are really wanting what you're putting out.
True, true, exactly.
With the reviews for the Crimson Diamond, it's been really great to see people say like, "Oh, text parser, I missed this, and I really am so glad, and this is excellent, and I'm really enjoying this, and all that stuff." And then I feel like there are all these like projections for how many reviews you get on your Steam store page versus like how many units you sold. There are all these calculations you can look up, and I have to say that I don't think the calculations are working really in my particular example because the people that have bought my game, I think, have been much higher percentage of people who bought my game have reviewed it because they're very passionate and very enthusiastic, and also they like typing. So they're much more likely to leave a review than maybe your typical customer. So when I see these sales projections, I'm like, yeah, those are not accurate because the people that bought my game, like I think a lot of them have written reviews.
I see, I see, I see, I
Yeah.
see. Okay. Okay, we have two questions. I wasn't aware of that. Sorry. Shungoku is asking. So Shungoku is asking that was there a time when, for example, throughout your development journey, you had like hard times with making your game, and you had to like take a break, and was it hard to like get back into development after the break?
Well, early on, I mentioned that I was doing it kind of as like a a hobby when I was doing freelance illustration. And when I was busy with freelance illustration, I could leave it for 3, 4 months at a time, and then come back to it and completely forget what I had been working on. So even to this day, with how the game has launched, there is redundant code where there's things that are in two different places because I forgot it was in the first place, and functions that I had programmed that then ended up not working properly. So then I had to like rewrite a bunch of stuff. But I will say that it's kind of like a like two sides of the same coin because when I was less busy with illustration, that meant that I was not getting very much work, which meant that this career that I had trained for was not working out for me at all, and that was very frustrating. It was a really difficult time. But on the flip side, that did mean, as I mentioned earlier, that I had more time to devote to this little hobby of mine
I
to
see.
make this game where for I was getting this internal satisfaction feeling that so I mean with the illustration I was looking for that external satisfaction of getting the contracts and getting work and getting money from those things, and that wasn't happening. And that was difficult, and ultimately when I decided to kind of let the freelance illustration thing go completely, almost completely, I would say that was a really tough decision to make because I'm not someone who likes the feeling that I'm giving up on
I
something.
see. I
And
see.
I told myself when I graduated from college I was going to give myself 10 years to make it as an illustrator, and that I gave myself I think the nine maybe even up to the 10 years, I don't remember. But that decision was really significant for me. And I thought, yeah, I was giving up not only on illustration, I was giving up on myself. That was really tough. But I will say that freeing myself up made me more free and have more time to devote to this other thing. So in a way, it was like a flip because when I was super busy with illustration, I was neglecting this hobby that was giving me all this positive energy. And when I let go of the thing that I was trying to work on that was not working out for me, it gave me more time to devote to the hobby that became more than a hobby later on. Um, so in a way, I would say that the, it's not that I had to take a break from the game so that I could get back to it and more refreshed.
I see.
I had to take a break from illustration to actually get
Get
to
into
do.
making the game.
Yes,
I see. I
exactly.
see.
It's kind of like an opposite
I
thing.
see. I
Yeah.
see. I see. And so, by speaking of this, what do you think could be the case that it took you so many years to figure it out that you actually have to, switch, and you are willing to switch. So
Yeah, that was it was it was a really difficult decision because you always think, oh, maybe like next month I'll get, you just never know what's around the corner. Like maybe next month is going to be the month, or maybe this time when I apply to the illustration
were you
contest, I'll.
questioning, by the way, this future of yours
Oh
that you will
yeah,
start making games?
oh yeah, every step of the way I was questioning it because you just never know,
Yeah,
and I
true,
knew
true,
I
true,
didn't
true.
I knew that I didn't know so much,
I see.
like I had very rudimentary knowledge of Adventure Game Studio, and I had never made a game before. I had never written any fiction before, like even like in a game or just as a story really. Like not since high school at least, and I'd never taken a creative writing class. I didn't know anything about characters or setting or anything like that. And I still have no formal training in those things. So coming into something with a lot of doubts about can I actually do this thing that I want to do, I just don't. You don't really know until you try.
True, true, true.
And it seemed to go like I said when I first showed it publicly in 2018. That's when I thought this is some people are liking this and maybe I can continue on with this. It's not just a thing that I'm enjoying; it's something that other people can enjoy. That was definitely a big deal for me and gave me kind of more courage to go for it.
That kicked you in the head, right? So you
Yeah,
have to start it and just go with it, go with the flow.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then when you show other people, it becomes much more real because now they've seen it and they
True, true.
ask you
It's not
where
just
where
for
is it?
you.
Yes, exactly. It's not just for me anymore, and
Yeah.
so what's been great though is people have been so patient about the development of the game. Like almost no one has said to me, "Where is it?" I don't think anyone has, in fact, said, "Where is this game?" I guess they've been waiting like 35 years for another game that's like this, so they're kind of okay with waiting. But I've had lovely reviews or comments on on things where people are saying, "Oh, I've been following this on and off for the past 3, 4, 5 years, and I'm so glad to see that it's happened and it's doing well and I've been enjoying it and stuff like that." That just knowing that people have been following along for that long is just it's so incredible to me.
Yeah, it's dedication and loyalty, and
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
exactly. Yeah, but it's the same side of the or the both sides of the same coin, like you mentioned. Like you were the one who were loyal, to the old school genre and the old school graphical side of those games, and they were loyal to those and to you as well with that, right? So they connected with you by that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just like I mentioned, just having people say that this is taking me back to being a kid and
Yeah,
sitting with
exactly,
my friend
exactly. Yeah.
playing at the desk because that's what I wanted to recreate, and that was my absolute number one goal was
They
to do
could
that.
they could connect to that message.
Yeah, so they connected to that, which was so significant to me. Pushing Up Roses made a video. She made a recent video about the game, and what was so great about it was she said at the beginning of it is playing it took her back to when she was playing beside her friend at the desk, and then her parents are watching TV in the other room. Like that whole scene. That's exactly what I wanted to recreate. That was my number one goal. The number two goal was potentially to reach people who had never played a text parser game, and or like that type of old school style of game where it looks a certain way, it sounds a certain way, and I've been loving kind of getting to see like younger streamers or younger people play the game and just get sucked in and like really get involved in that because I've always felt like this format is there's more than nostalgia to this format.
True, true.
I feel like it's a very compelling way to tell a story,
Exactly.
and knowing that there are younger people that are seeing that appeal, like that was my second goal with the game was to introduce this style of game to more people and people who haven't played it before. And there's on my Steam hub, like the forum and stuff for the game, there is actually a thread of someone saying, "Where can I get more of this type of a game?" Which I love to see, and people are like suggesting other games to them that they could get that are other text parser games, which is like I said, it was something I wanted because that was a secondary goal. But the first goal was people who remembered this style of game enjoying my game, but then to have it be the flip side of that, where people who are playing my game want to go back and play the other ones. That was really cool to see.
Nice, nice. Okay, Mini is asking if you could like flip something in your life and in your work to make your life easier. What would it be, or what could it be?
Hmm.
To change something in your work to
Yes.
make your life easier.
I will always go back to the programming.
You
That's
always
always
go back
that's
to that.
I always go back to it. It's the weakest thing. It's so humiliating when I actually have to show like my testers some of the code that I've written. Because it's okay, it's for the best. I need to show them this so they can help me fix it, but it's the most embarrassing thing. Like there was on Twitter there was that post about Balatro, that card game where the whole game is like nested if else statements. And that's like almost literally exactly like the way my game is designed. Um, and I know from experience that Adventure Game Studio has a limit of 250 nested if else statements
Oh,
because
really?
I've come upon that limit a few times, and I've had to like that's one of the big sticking points I had with the game.
Okay.
It's the first time I hit the limit of 250 nested if else statements in Adventure Game Studio. I'm like, oh no, I have to stop making the game now because I have this limit. So what am I supposed to do? But then, you know, of course, there's always a way. There's like a workaround, and I was helped with the workaround from the Adventure Game Studio forum. People actually gave me these suggestions that I then had to figure out how to implement because I had no background doing that stuff. But I was able to make that work, and that was the first big huge stumbling block that I had in the development of the game was coming upon that limitation on nested if else statements.
Okay.
But now I'm an expert at circumventing it. But then hopefully next time when I make the game when I make the next one, I will have better scripting, so I won't even come upon that limit again. I'll just sail through with much more beautiful code. I mean, the code is so good with the testers that I'll be sent some code, and it doesn't even look like the same language that I'm using for the game because it's just that much more advanced and it's using the exact same engine. I copy and paste their code and it works exactly the same as mine. It's like a tenth of the length. So that's the flip that I would have to say is my number one biggest weakness. Thing I need to improve the most on. That would help me the most.
I see. Okay. Thank you for the question and answer as well. Thank you. Okay. Any more questions, by the way, from anyone on the stream? Bármilyen kérdés, hölgyek, urak, ami még esetleg nem lett volna? Let us know, let us know. By the way, we talked about like the devil of the video game development journey, the publishers, you know. So were you like, did you want it to have a publisher on your journey when you like wanted to release your game?
I looked around a little bit, but I wasn't really seeking it out because I knew that with a combination of the contract work and my savings, I could finish the game without needing that.
Okay.
And I'm glad that I did because the publishers take a big cut. And the margins that I'm working at, I don't think it would be feasible for me to even consider working on another one full time if I had a publisher take that kind of
I
cut.
see, I see.
I did hire like a PR company, Player 2 PR, to help me with the launch, with launch PR and like media outreach and stuff like that. I'm really glad that I did because it's another one of those things where there's only so much I can do. I'm only one person, and having them on hand hired to handle that was really really helpful. But that's something like a publisher would have handled had they, you know, had I had a publisher. But at the same time, I don't need a publisher because I was able to pay them myself and not have to have a publisher take. I don't know how much publishers even take now. What, 50%, 30%? I don't know what they take. Probably, I have no idea. Some percentage. Let's just say, let's be charitable and say 30% for the rest of the
It's
game's
not
like
true.
life.
I can tell you that it's not true. It's way more.
Okay. Okay, it's way more. So I mean, look, okay,
Sadly,
Steam
sadly.
take. Okay, how much are they taking?
I mean, there are publishers who take like 70, so.
Oh my God. Okay, so okay, let's say
That's why
a
I was
publisher's
joking about it like a devil, right? So I was joking, of course, and not all the publishers are bad, but I had these, you know, ghost stories that are very bad. So
yeah,
let's
so
not
we're talking
get into that. But yeah, yeah.
okay, so let's say 50%. Let's just say 50 because we'll pretend like there's a publisher. They're taking 50%, the Steam's taking 30%, you know, and then taxes and everything. Like what is left for the developer, right? That's why I was considering like, you know, early on people Luis was asking about the funding, and that's why I'm considering something like Kickstarter to fund my second game. Because I I can't imagine that it'd be something where I could have a publisher take 50%, Steam take 30%, and then how can I live off the rest of that?
Yeah, and
It
it's
just
also like not guaranteed that the publisher will really help you.
well,
Like I
that's another
saw a
yeah,
lot of
exactly.
cases when like
Yes.
publishers weren't like really helping promoting the game, but they are taking away like the money of
Yeah, there's so and
the
that's just
revenue.
so Yeah, that's
the
so much
shares.
money,
Yeah,
and just being as frugal of a person I am, that if I feel like I'm paying so much money out for something I'm not getting my money's worth, I find that enraging.
true, true,
Like
exactly.
I
It's
I
work, right?
just
So it's just work, like
yeah.
everything else. So
Yeah, so that's why I probably wouldn't seek out a publisher. They're very handy for other things, like in ways that did not really make sense for my game. Like we talked about console porting, like they would probably help with console porting, or if my game had voice acting, maybe they could help fund the voice acting and things like that. But I'm not going to have voice acting in my next game, or there's none in this game, and I would didn't really have an interest in console porting. So those things that potentially a publisher could help fund through their connections are not things that really I not really things I needed myself. Even with the PR company, I think what standard practice for PR is to hire a PR company like 6 months before you announce your game or launch your game, and what they do is they help you find like your market, right? They find what your target demographic is and who those people are and what they like and everything. But I knew all that stuff already, so I didn't need the PR company to help me figure out what my market is because I was my market. I was selling it to myself for the most
true,
part.
true,
Um,
true, true, true.
but I did need my PR company for, like I said, that media outreach in the last like month or so where everything was super hectic, and I wanted to get the game in front of press, and I wanted to get the game in front of like Twitch streamers and YouTubers and things like that. Like they had like a vast database of contacts that they could then put the key in front of and everything like that, and that was very helpful. But in terms of like finding out what the market is for my game, like that part I definitely didn't need. So I'm glad I didn't hire PR like too early on, actually, because I'd spent nearly 6 years doing all that myself. That's another, we talked about marketing a little bit. We touched upon it.
Sure.
And I know that for a lot of indie game developers, they don't like it. And I get it. Like it's a whole other job. It's almost as important as the actual game development itself if you're trying to commercially release
Exactly.
something.
Yeah.
And I fortunately have the ability to have consistency in that type of a thing. So I would stream weekly. I have a monthly gazette that I have. I post regularly on social media, and I've been doing that regularly for the past, six years or
That's
so.
what I
And
said earlier as well. That
yeah,
it helped you like grow your audience, who are
yes,
the people who will buy your game as well.
exactly. So
Mm.
I feel like I really invested early on in just
Yeah.
doing these things repeatedly, and then slowly, it happened very, very slowly. Slowly building that audience of people who would be interested in playing the game and be interested in
But it's
streaming
also
the
a
game.
grind, right? So just like you mentioned before, the grind. Yeah.
It is a bit of a grind, but what's funny, and I really feel fortunate about this part, is that I actually bizarrely enjoy the marketing aspect too, because I see it
You're
as,
making personal connections with people, right? So
yes, I see it as personal connections, and I see it as if you're going to enjoy this game, then I want you to enjoy this game. And if I can show you something that I think you could enjoy, then I think we could both be happy with that.
true. Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
I consider it almost like a service to people
I think
versus
that's
me
what
being
PRs
obnoxious.
and the publishers are missing, right? That
Mm.
connection, that real connection, because even if they are
Yeah.
selling your game, they won't be you, right? So it's hard to connect with them, and it's
Yes.
easier
And
to
it's
connect with you, right? So because you are understanding
yes.
your own game,
Yes. Yeah, it's impossible for a PR company to
exactly.
be able to connect with your audience as well. Potentially, I mean, depending on how comfortable you are with it. Like maybe if you are very uncomfortable with the idea of marketing and talking about your game yourself, then a PR company would be a very, very good investment.
Exactly.
But yeah, like as you say, like you could potentially be the best salesperson for your own project
Exactly.
because you have that personal stake in it. You understand it better than anybody else is going to understand it.
It's. I
And
mean.
you
I
could,
mean. Sorry for interpreting. I
no, no.
met some good PR and management people who are really could understand those games that they were willing to sell for those creators and to help them grow their audience. But it's very rare in my opinion. So I think it's rare because like it's guaranteed money for them, right? So it's not like if they get the guaranteed money, it's like they can be lazy about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and it happens to me as a person who are making those dev live shows, because whenever I try to connect myself with the developer and ask them to be part of my show, and I was connected throughout the PR company, I had these funny moments when PR said, okay, developers are saying no. And the other day I had yes from the exact developer. And I copy pasted my message to the PR, and they were like, "What?" And they told me
Huh.
that developer told me that the PR did not even like connected with them. And I was like,
Huh.
"Hey, where is your work ethic? Like what happened? Like why are you saying
Huh.
no if the developers is down to take part to be in my show?
Yeah.
Like what happened? Like what could be a
Yeah.
problem?" They went silent about it. So I had these issues with some PRs who I don't want to mention, of course, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it was a joke, of course, by me
Mm.
saying that they are devil, but I feel like that you mentioned and me mentioned as well. It's pretty much the same, that some companies, especially like publishers and PR management people, can be like not understanding the way how it is important to connect the players and
Yeah.
the enjoyers of games with the creators, because most of the creators are open-minded people who are
Mm-hmm.
very much likely willing to speak with the people who are will be the buyers of their games, and it's
Mm-hmm.
important, like it's the most important thing in this market.
Yeah, yeah, I was already kind of used to this idea of the hustle of marketing because of my freelance illustration background. Like they actually taught us that in school about, setting up a website and having, postcards and, mailing
Yeah,
mailers and things like that. Like those things I was very accustomed to already, and that idea of having to put yourself out there and showing your work on social media and everything like that. So when I started game development, I kind of approach it the same way as I had with the freelance illustration, putting my work on social media and having a website for it and everything like that, which I think really helped me overall. When just because I knew going into it that that's what I would need to do. Um, it would be nice not to have to do those things. It would be nice if you could just rely on the work itself to speak for itself. But there's just so many games coming out nowadays. You
true,
just really
true,
cannot
true,
rely on
true,
that.
true, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to compete in some way, right? So
Oh yeah.
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 Okay, let us know if there is any more question. Hölgyek, urak, bármi más kérdés? Bármi más kérdés? Any more questions, ladies and gentlemen? Let us know. I think that we have discussed a lot of topics. By the way, if there is any more topics or uh, anything that you would like to mention, let us know. Let us know
Hmm. Hmm.
that we haven't talked about, or you would like to.
Hmm. Good question. Um, I suppose I just could say that if you like the game, leave a review on Steam. It's very
True, true,
helpful.
true,
We,
true.
we, we just talked about visibility, and that's a really good way to increase visibility
I
for
will
the game.
share again the Steam
Ah,
page of
thank
it,
you.
by the way.
Um, what else? What else? I will be streaming tonight,
Okay.
later this evening. So at around 8:30, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, I will be doing my stream, which nowadays is not working on the game anymore, but I'm doing this EGA demake of my own key art. I illustrated my own key art, which is kind of a nice full circle moment for me, to make an illustration for myself for my own game. And what I like to do is I've done this on stream before. Like I've done an EGA demake of
I share your
that
Twitch
little.
as well in my chat.
Oh, thank you. Yes, perfect. I did an EGA demake of. I started an EGA demake of Hades because I really like the art in that
Okay.
game. Also, I did an EGA make of a Sailor Moon screenshot. I like to do EGA makes of things just as a fun artistic exercise. So I'm doing my own EGA make of my own key art on my stream right now. I'm also working on with speaking of Twitch streamer friends. There is a mod for Cosmos Cosmic Adventure called Pantsmos Pantaloon Adventure,
Okay.
which was spearheaded by Evil Tentacle and M Zizzy, and I contributed some art to that. So I've been adding sprites to their modded game. And what it is basically Cosmos Cosmic Adventure, but we put pants on everything because Cosmo is a naked alien, and I just doesn't sit right with me. But yeah, you can actually find Evil Tentacles itch.io page. You can download that and play it for free. And so what I do nowadays with my stream time is do my EJD make of my key art, put pants on more Cosmos Cosmic Adventure sprites, and I end off the evening with working on finishing an EGA adventure game. And I just finished Chamber of the Psy Mutant Priestess,
Okay.
which is an incredible French game from 1989, which is on Steam, by the way. It was on the Steam summer sale, and I bought it, which It's funny to me that a game from 1989 was on the Steam Summer Sale
It's
because I always think of
rare.
those as
Yeah.
newish games. But anyway, that's been a whole like lesson in an old game design and also an appreciation in EGA art of the era, and also just a way for me to play games because I just don't give myself time to play games anymore really, except on stream. But I will be having at some point in the nearest future the developer of a game called Lord Avalot d'Argent,
Okay.
which is a solo game, solo indie game developed in 1995, I believe, 1994, 1995. By well, not a solo. It's like two people, I think, Mark Thurman and Marnell Thurman. And I actually had Marnell Thurman on because she and her brother had made a game called Denarius Avaricius Sextus in like
Okay.
1992 or something. And it's an EGA text parser adventure game, and it was incredible to get to play that. And I had Martinol on to talk about the game and the development of the game and growing up in Letchworth Garden City, which the company is called Thorsoft of Letchworth. And so she had these amazing stories about growing up where she grew up and the development of her games. And I plan on having her on at some point, but we need to schedule that. But yeah, so I'll be streaming on Twitch tonight. Thursday, I will be streaming a bonus stream on my Steam store page for the Game Devs of Color Expo. I mean, I'm a part of that, so I'm going to start streaming. What's going to be fun about that one is I've streamed my game before, but only the demo.
Okay.
For like Steam Next Fest and Big Adventure Event and all things like that. This is going to be the first time I'm going to be streaming Chapter 2 of my game
Okay.
and talking about Chapter 2 of the game. I've been super careful before launch about any spoilers, but now that the game's been out, I'm going to start talking about the later chapters like slowly, getting into that. So that's going to be the bonus stream on Thursday, probably at 8 p.m. Eastern on my Steam store page.
Okay. Let us know, by the way, if you guys and girls have any more questions.
Mm-hmm.
You anything that we have discussed. By the way, are there any other social media platforms that you would like to share? I shared your Twitch. I shared
Oh
your
yes,
Steam page of your game.
yes. So the
Feel
the
free,
the
by the way,
so.
to put the links if you would like to in the chat, and I can highlight it.
um, well, yeah, the crimsondiamond.com is where you're going to find all my social media links and everything, and just in one convenient place.
Okay.
I'm on Twitter, I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on Mastodon. There's a Facebook page for the Crimson Diamonds. There's a YouTube channel where I put my VODs after I've streamed on Twitch. And yeah, you're gonna find links for like how to buy the game on Steam, itch.io, Fireflower Games. There's
Okay.
a way to subscribe to the Crimson Gazette, which if you want to take a bit of a breather from social media, you can subscribe to the Crimson Diamond Gazette, and you'll get like a monthly compendium of all the stuff that's been going on with the game. And I'll put like I'm actually working on that. I've been working on that the past couple days. I put on like the links to all the reviews and stuff like this, interviews and chats, and
Thank you
rock
for that.
facts. Yeah, of course. No, this is all part of it. It's my pleasure. And yeah, just developer update and everything. So that's a monthly thing that happens like mid-month every month. I've been doing it for like 72 issues now. I think this is the 72nd issue. Um, and that'll come straight to your email box if you want to just have it all in one place like that. Otherwise, I just piecemeal will just announce stuff on different social media sites.
I
But
see.
yeah, yeah. So the crimsondiamond.com is where you're going to find all that stuff.
Okay. Thank you. I will make sure to share that on my Discord as well after you
Oh, thank
joined
you.
us. Yeah. Okay. Let us know, ladies and gentlemen, if there is any closing questions, and after that, we'll close the stream now. For now, I will. By the way, I will also have the edited version of this video interview for those who are wondering on my YouTube channel, and clips for my TikTok. By the way, an advice for you: you could grow yourself for Twitch as well with TikTok, in my opinion, because it's very
Yes.
rare what you are doing on Twitch as well, but it's even more rare on TikTok. So you
Yeah,
could
I
do
had
that as
that.
well, like a multi-platform stream or small clips from your
Oh,
streams. Yeah.
huh. And I didn't know that you could like multi-platform
Yeah,
stream
yeah, you
on
can, you can,
TikTok.
you can. Actually, Twitch,
Oh.
like some years ago, started to let streamers to do that. So now you
Oh.
don't have to be loyal to just one platform. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I did a bit of experimenting before launch with doing like Instagram reels and things like that. I kind of like got too busy and kind of fell off of it, but that was a fun thing to do. And this TikTok is something we did discuss, but I'm like, I can't, there's only so much I can do on one person. So I never got around to exploring TikTok because it just seemed overwhelming to start with a whole new platform. I already had the Instagram page. So I'm like, that seems easier to do. And the Instagram audience is a little bit older than TikTok
Yeah,
people.
but
So
that's
maybe that's
why
going to
I
be,
started to mention this because like there is a
hmm,
program in OBS if you can connect multiple platforms like YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok, and
yes.
there is like an add-on for OBS in which or via which you can see all the chat in one
Yeah.
window.
Is it Restream? Restream?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay.
My friend showed it to me like I don't know 1 week ago or so because he started doing that to TikTok,
Okay.
to YouTube, and the Twitch at the same time. And he has only one window, and it shows like
Yes.
on which platform to him on his chat.
Yeah, I something called Restream, which is like a multi-platform streaming kind
Okay.
of was like I was trying to stream simultaneously on YouTube. Um, and I think with the limitation is not that good. It's a little bit demanding a couple different places at once, and I think I was getting lag. I think that was the issue that I was having with multi-platform streaming. Near future, maybe I'll get like a new computer or something more suitable to streaming because the current machine that I have is when I try to open up a browser window, it just only streaming from through OBS on Twitch. So, too.
Okay. I see. I see. Okay. Again, ladies and gentlemen, let us know if there is any, and after that, we will close our interview here. Hölgyek, urak, bármi? Ilyen más kérdés? No, let us know. Do you find that we haven't touched this topic or close up with?
Hmm. Not particularly, except what I in the closing comments and things like this is before it's really hard for indie game developers to and get people to look at their games. So people like you there to spend your time with us and talk to us, introduce us to your audience. Like this is the type of thing that is so, and I want to thank you for not just talking to me but other developers and putting that stuff up on YouTube and streaming. Thank you for your time and thank you for inviting me on
Thank
this.
you, thank you, thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you for that. Thank you. Oh, Didier is saying, by the way, in Hungarian that your game is very nice and he will buy it for sure.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Grown is has a troll questions, but I won't read that out loud because it's he's just trolling.
Okay, well, I can't read. I can't read. Was it Hungarian?
Yeah, it was in Hungarian. Yeah.
Okay, so it's all good.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. Yeah, so when I started this show of mine called Dev
Hmm.
Life, I had this goal because I felt like I mentioned before, I felt like nowadays it's such a cancel culture era, especially for video games and for creators and developers we live in, and players are so harsh, you know. And I
Mm.
was always the person who like reviewed the games when I used to work for companies here in Hungary as a video game journalist. I always try to review games with a perspective like we reviewed poems in schools,
Hmm.
if that
Hmm.
makes any
Hmm.
sense.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
for me, it was more like, to share my experiences with an objective perspective and to,
Hmm.
give a perspective to players to enjoy the game or even try it out, because I feel like it's a very bad thing that people nowadays do, especially even if it's influencers, streamers, or journalists, that they told you not to buy a game just because it's like, not worth the money or it's not a good game. Like, come on, like people have to try it out and then decide. You have to just
Mm.
show them the box what they are getting, and that's all. Like, you don't have to like have their opinion by you. And in my opinion, it's a very rare perspective that I'm trying to give out to people, and it's very
Mm.
hard because I feel like people are so close-minded about being harsh and being judgy about everything in our life, and it sucks. In my opinion, it's very bad to see that. But since I'm passionate about video games since my childhood, and I'm still am, and I still love playing games, and uh, it was not just my hobby but my passion, and I also worked in this territory, and now
Mhm.
I'm freelancing in it. I felt like I it's a need for me to help people grow, and to help
Yeah.
people realize, not just for the developer part but for the players part, that like we talked about it before, that it's real human beings who are making these games.
Mhm.
It's not just click and games are done.
Mhm.
It's not. So yeah, I take it in a very personal level to do
Oh
that. So
yeah,
yeah.
that's it's nice to know that there are people like you out there who have that perspective and
Thank you.
want to share that perspective and then help people also to see from that perspective.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, if there are no more questions or comments as for our interview today, we will close down here. And like I said, I'm very thankful and honored that you joined us today. I will need some of your minutes since I will
Yes.
invite you to our Discord server. But for those who are watching or who will be watching it back as a VOD on Twitch or YouTube, thanks everyone who joined us, and thanks for the questions. And have a great night or